Lillahi ta'ala. Let's continue first, and then inshallah ta'ala, maybe we'll have some time and we can review again. But there's just something here. So I wanted to read to you what we have here about the 20th line here, where the author says, والثاني لا يسقطه لكن يصف أوصافه بما به لا ينعرف. And he's talking about a type of trickery in the chain, a type of tadlis. And he said there's two kinds. And he said the second kind is when the narrator does not drop his sheikh out of the chain. His sheikh means the one he heard from. However, he describes him in a way that's by which he's unrecognizable. He describes him in an unrecognizable way. Yes, لكن يصف أوصافه بما به لا ينعرف. And so I told you about this term here where he said لا ينعرف. And so I wanted to read to you. I wanted to read to you what's in the explanation of Sheikh Muhammad Siraj Al-Jabarti, rahimahullah, for Al-Bayquniyyah. Here, this one that I have Ijaza in. So he commented here. He said, Bima bihi la yan'arif. So this part here, Bima bihi la yan'arif. So it looks like he's saying he describes his descriptions. Yasif awsafahu. Yasifu awsafahu. He describes his descriptions bima bihi la yan'arif, by that, by what? By which he is not known. He said, وَقَوْلُ النَّاظِمِ, when the composer said, la yan'arif, so this la yan'arif here, he said, la yu'rafu lughatan. This is not known in the language. Walau qal, and had he said, yani, had he arranged his line like this, for example, والثاني لا يسقطه بل يصف sorry والثاني لا يسقطه بل يصف أوصافه بما به لا يعرف بما به لا يعرف. Then he said, لكان صوابا. This would have been correct. So that's how he commented on that statement there about La Yanari. Because we were talking about last time, I was telling you how the author improvised here. And then I told you how the poets in Arabic, they have what's called darura. I'm translating it as poetic license. So they have permission to break standard rules for the sake of the poetry. And this breaking of standard rules, which is called darura to share the necessity of poetry, this poetic license, it has a range. And I told you, the lowest level is called radi. I said, I'm going to translate it as, I'm going to call it corny. So there's some things that the poet would do that's radi, it's corny. And some things the poet would do, I said cool last time, but let's say decent. And some things the poet would do, and it would be decent. Yani, it is cool. It's nice. It's clever. And then one of the brothers asked me, so this one is corny? I said, it's corny. And then I said, that's the impression that I got. So now I just read to you the statement that he said. He said, it's not known linguistically That's what he said. لا يعرف لغة. And he said, had he said it this way, لكان صوابا. Had he said it this way, it would have been correct. So that's why I said I had gotten the impression from there. And then I said, as if it's corny. And I want to clarify here. Because when we say, and I forgot what's the other end, what do they call it? One end is Rodi. Rodi is corny. What's the side that's decent when it's decent? What's that called? I forgot what that's called. I'll have to review. But it's not just yani, this or that. Rather, there's a range. So could be like very decent or could be very corny, something. Not this one here. Something could be very decent or it could be very corny or it could be like leaning towards corny or yani, it's good. It's not the best, for example. So I don't know where does that fall there. What the author said here, لا ينعرف. So the words of the Sheikh Al-Jabarti, they are polite, has said in a polite way. Something. He said something about the statement in a polite way. Yeah, I mean, he hinted at something in a polite way. Okay. So let's continue. In fact, let's just back up a little bit so we can connect all the information. So the author says, let's start from line 17. وكل ما لم يتصل بحال إسناده منقطع الأوصال. And anything that its chain of narration does not connect at all, yani somewhere in some way or another, there is interruption in its chain in one way or another, then it is munqati'. So that's what the author said. And this way of saying it, like we said, is too broad because when you say it this way, it includes cases of interrupted chains that have other names other than munqati'. What names did we see, by the way, to remind you? What names did we see? We saw, besides the name Al-Munqati', we saw also Al-Mu'dal, which is coming. And we saw Al-Mu'allaq, which is not mentioned in the author's text, Al-Mu'allaq. And we saw Al-Mursal. Okay. Out of these four, the author did not mention Mu'allaq, but we did talk about it. So, what's the famous usage of these words? Munqati', this one, number one. Munqati' is what has one person missing from the chain, or more than one, but not in a row. One person missing from the chain. You know what I mean? So, one missing, or more than one, yani one missing or more, but not in a row. Not more than one in a row. Okay, that's munqati'. What's mu'dal? Number two here. Mu'dal is two or more missing consecutively. And what's mursal? Number three here. That is what the tabi'i attributes to the Prophet. sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what the Tabi'i attributes to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam directly without mention of his intermediary. And this last one that the author didn't mention, al-mu'allaq, is what an author is. An author erased from the chain, from his end, from his side of the chain, deliberately doing so, such as for him to deliberately not mention his own sheikh. That's not a case of trickery. Or even more than his own sheikh, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people in the chain from his side, or all of the chain. And he just attributes the hadith to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Or he attributes the hadith to the companion who narrates from the Prophet. He says from Aisha that the Prophet said, or from Ibn Abbas that the Prophet said, and he drops all of his chain. That's just an example. Sallallahu ala Muhammad. So the way the author mentioned munqati' in his poetry includes all these cases. And all these cases are really not meant by munqati' in the terminology of the hadith scholars. If you have any question, feel free, please. So he said, وَكُلُّ مَا لَمْ يَتَّصِلْ بِحَالِي, all of what did not connect at all in some way or another, بِحَال, إسناده, يعني لم يتصل إسناده, فهو منقطع الأوصال, then it's منقطع. وَالْمُعْضَلُ السَّاقِطُ مِنْهُ اثْنَانِ, and the mu'dal, the problematic one or the exhausting one, is that which dropped from it 2. He means 2 consecutively or more. And that's all he says about it. Then he says, وَمَا أَتَى مُدَلَّسًا نَوْعَانِ, and whatever came rigged, manipulated, is of 2 types. Al-awwal al-isqatu lish-shaykh wa an yankul amman fawqahu bi'an wa an. The first kind is to drop the shaykh, yani the one who's dropping him, the shaykh of the one who's dropping him. For someone to drop his own shaykh, the one he heard from. Al-isqatu li-shaykh wa an yankul amman fawqahu, and to narrate from whoever's above him, meaning before him. Fawqahu, that's a terminology also. That's a hadith terminology. Fawqahu, dunahu, above him means before him. Dunahu, below him means after him. He drops his sheikh and then narrates from the one above him by saying from, or by saying that. What does that mean? It means he says from so-and-so, and then give you the impression that you think he means I heard from so-and-so, but he didn't say I heard. He just says from so-and-so, an fulan. Is that acceptable? Yes, it is acceptable, but not from a trickster. It's not acceptable from a trickster to say from fulan, from fulan, from fulan. If the scholars know that someone is a trickster in his narration, he's called mudallis with a kasra, mudallis. If they know that he's a trickster in his narration, then they will not accept from him unless he explicitly states that he heard. They accept the narration of an from someone who's not a trickster, not known to be, let's say, not known to be, la yarafu. كونه مدلسا. He's not known to be a trickster. Then they will accept from him. But the trickster, he narrates, he drops his own sheikh and he says from, or he says that. What does that mean? It means he says, that so-and-so said. So you'd think he's saying, I heard that. Yani, or so-and-so told me. Yani, that so-and-so told me something that gives you the impression that he heard from the one he's mentioning when he didn't. So he's using an from, or he's using an that to formulate a statement that gives you the impression that he's telling you who he heard from. So that's the first kind of trickery in the narration. And what came like that then is called mudallas, rigged, or manipulated. وَالثَّانِي لَا يُسْقِطُهُ. The second kind out of the two is that he does not drop him out. لكن يصف أوصافه بما به لا ينعرف. However, he describes him with that by which he is unrecognized. He describes him by that by which he is unrecognized. That means he calls him by a name that you don't know, or by some description that you don't know. Like, don't you know many Muslims, their name's Muhammad? Yeah, but they might be called another name. Like, I didn't know one sheikh, his name is Muhammad. I thought his name was Amir. He told me one day, my name is Muhammad. I said, your name's Muhammad? So what if somebody said one day, from Sheikh Muhammad? If I didn't know his name was Muhammad, then I wouldn't have known who he's talking about. But he's not dropping him out. He is actually mentioning him. Then this is where we are now. The author says, وَمَا يُخَالِفْ ثِقَةٌ بِهِ الْمَلَأ فَالشَّاذُ وَالْمَقْلُوبُ قِسْمَانِ هَلَا. And that, wama, and that which, or something, bihi, by which, yukhalifu thiqatun, a trustworthy opposes, al-mala, a group, wama yukhalif thiqatun bihi al-mala, and that by which a trustworthy one opposes a group, fashadhu, then that one is shadh. But without a shadda here. Although originally there is a shadda. But without shadda here for the poetry. Fashadhu wal maqlubu. So what fashad? So it stops there. And that by which a trustworthy one opposes a group, it is anomalous or irregular. You said, so it's not always necessary with malintent that one drops their sheikh out. The scholars did not give any merit to it. That's how I can answer your question. There is no merit to a person dropping his sheikh out in any of these scenarios. Did he maybe innocently mention him with a name by which he's unknown? Maybe he did innocently mention him by a name that he's not known for, or a description he's not known for. So be it. I haven't heard any talk about that. But when he does it on purpose, then this is not acceptable. Yani, it's not acceptable here means not encouraged. And it's not appreciated. You're welcome. So anything by which a trustworthy one opposes a group is irregular. So we talked about this. You learned about shad when you learned about the conditions of acceptance. One of the conditions for a hadith to be acceptable is that it is not irregular. What is the shudud, the irregularity, or the anomaly? It cannot be anomalous. And then what would be the anomaly? It is for this trustworthy one, this reliable one that we take from, to say something that actually by its own, on its own merit, there's nothing wrong with it. There is nothing, just by itself on its own merit, nothing wrong with it. The chain is fine, checks out. The content of the text is fine. And had it not been for something else, then the scholars would not have rejected it. But they found another report that contradicts this one in a way that they cannot put them together. They cannot merge them, and therefore they must choose one over the other. Because when we try to merge renditions and merge narrations, it's because we want to keep both of them. For example, didn't the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say in one hadith, وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ, every innovation is misguidance? Yes. It's authentic hadith. We want it. But didn't he also say, وَمَنْ سَنَّ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ سُنَّةً, or مَنْ سَنَّ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ سُنَّةً حَسَنَةً فَلَهُ أَجْرُهَا, whoever paves a good path in Islam shall have its reward. Yeah, he said that too, and that's authentic. We want it. There's not a contradiction between these two? Not if we say that the first one was just broad words that have specific meaning, referring to something in particular, something bad in particular, and there is a good kind of that thing that's not included in that hadith. But this other one proves that there is a good kind, and if we explain it this way, then there's no contradiction. So that's what it means to merge them, and then keep both of them. But when you have two hadiths that you cannot merge them, and both of them on their own merit, each one of them on its own merit is acceptable, then the scholars must look into the ways of preponderance so that they can choose one over the other, not arbitrarily, not choose one over the other arbitrarily, but by an indicator, a preponderator, something that shows that one of them is more deserving of being taken than the other, such as for one of them to be narrated by a group. So one of them is narrated by a trustworthy one, and one of them is narrated by a group of trustworthy ones, and we can't put these two together. Then which one is more likely to be accurate and more likely, more deserving to be taken? The one narrated by a group of trustworthy ones, because it's more likely that all those trustworthy ones remembered the same thing than that they all made the same mistake, and that single loner, he knew what was right. Though it's not mentally impossible, but it's unlikely, because we have a very sensible religion. Makes a lot of sense. Unlikely that that one is right and that whole group is wrong, or even one trustworthy narrator versus a more reliable narrator, even if it's just one against one, but one of them is higher expert, more reliable. Then it's unlikely that the higher expert is mistaken, and the one with the weaker memory is right. Not that it's impossible, but unlikely. And so we will preponderate and give weight to what came from a group. And we will give weight to what came from the more reliable narrator. And so that one that we give weight to, that's the one that actually we're going to keep. And that one is called Mahfuz. 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 So if that's a hadith mahfuz, it means it's a hadith that was compared to another hadith and found to be the one preponderant. That's the one. So if it were said, that's a hadithun mahfuz, preserved, preserved, or if you want, kept. If it were said, that's a hadithun mahfuz, that's the kept hadith. It means this was one that was subject to being compared to another. Both of which were on their own standing acceptable, and the other one was found to be the outweighed one, and so it was shadh, anomalous, and therefore disregarded and deemed weak without that weakness being apparent. So when you say that's hadithun mahfuz, means it was a hadith compared to another one that apparently was acceptable, and this was the one deemed the weighty one, and the other one was the rejected one. Let's do a quick review here. Inshallah, you've been memorizing the metin. So he says from the top here, أبدأ بالحمد مصليا على محمد خير نبي أرسلا. I start with the praise of God, as one who makes salat upon Muhammad, the best prophet sent. وذي من أقسام الحديث عدة. And these are amongst the division, are some of the divisions of the hadith counted. وَكُلُّ وَاحِدٍ أَتَى وَحَدَّهُ. And each one came with its definition. For an example, أولها الصحيح وهو ما اتصل إسناده ولم يشذ أو يعل. The first type, the first of them, meaning the first of the types, is the sound hadith, as-sahih. That's literal meaning of sahih, sound, which means healthy. Although we might say authentic. وَهُوَ مَتَّصَلْ. And it is what connected. إسناده, it's chain, yani it's chain connected. وَلَمْ يَشُذَّ أَوْ يُعَلْ. And it was not shadh, was not anomalous. As we just finished talking about now. لَمْ يَشُذَّ. لَمْ يَشُذَّ. أَوْ يُعَلْ. Nor was it defective. We didn't talk about defective hadith yet. يَرْوِيهِ عَدْلٌ ضَابِطٌ عَنْ مِثْلِهِ. A trustworthy, accurate one narrates it from someone like himself. That means everyone in the chain is a trustworthy, accurate one. مُعْتَمَدٌ فِي ضَبْطِهِ وَنَقْلِهِ. Reliable in his accuracy and his documentation. And you know, we're talking here about the highest level of accuracy, which is, here's the name right here written, ضبط الصدر, ضبط الصدر, ضبط الصدر, chest precision. This refers to his photographic memory. This chest precision of his is his photographic memory. What's less than that? What's less than that is Babtul Kitab. Babtul Kitab. Book precision or book accuracy. That's when you're going to be the narrator of Hassan narrations. Narrator of authentic or sahih sound narrations higher than this precision. His precision's higher than this. The book precision is when one has accurate documentation. He checks his documentation and protects his documentation so that he can narrate accurately whenever he has his documentation. His precision is less because he can't narrate without his documentation. The other one can narrate whenever he wants to because of his photographic memory. But does photographic memory mean you are intelligent? No, photographic memory does not mean you are intelligent. Like whom? Anyone know an example of somebody with photographic memory and he was not intelligent?
Ibn Taymiyyah.
Yeah, Ibn Taymiyyah. It was said about him that he could read a thick textbook. Yeah, one time he could read it and then he could write it. Read it one time and then he could write it. He could copy it. But despite that, his mind was crippled. عِلْمُهُ أَكْبَرُ مِنْ عَقْلِهِ. That's what the scholar said. His knowledge surpasses his intelligence. Although some scholars said about Ibn Taymiyyah that he knows what he's doing. Basically, he's a troll. They saying, Yafham, he does understand. That's what some of them said. Some of them said, Yafham, Ibn Taymiyyah understands, means he's doing what he's doing on purpose. They said, therefore, he's zindiq, a religious one. Line 5. وَالْحَسَنُ الْمَعْرُوفُ طُرْقًا وَغَدَتْ رِجَالُهُ لَا كَالصَّحِيحِ اشْتَهَرَتْ. The Hasan is the one with known pathways, though even if it came from one pathway, could still be a Hasan hadith. وَغَدَتْ رِجَالُهُ لَا كَالصَّحِيحِ اشْتَهَرَتْ. And its men, meaning its narrators, were famous, but not famous like the men of the authentic narrations. Not famous like the fame of the men of sound narrations. They are men of fair narrations. Men here means men and women, narrators. They are narrators of fair narrations. They are not famous for precision. That's what this fame here refers to. Fame being famous for the accuracy. They are not famous for the accuracy like the narrators of sound narration are. وَكُلُّ مَا عَنْ رُتْبَةِ الْحُسْنِ قَصُرٍ فَهُوَ الضَّعِيفُ وَهُوَ أَقْسَامًا كَفُرٍ. And anything from the level of fairness, anything that falls short of the level of fairness, then it is weak. And in divisions, it has multiplied. Yani, it became many. We talked about why. وَمَا أُضِيفَ لِلنَّبِيِّ الْمَرْفُوعُ وَمَا لِتَابِعٍ هُوَ الْمَقْطُوعُ. And what is attributed to the Prophet is marfu'. And what is attributed to a tabi'i is maqtu'. So what is attributed, ma udlifa, what is annexed to, what is attributed to, does not mean confirmed, does not mean authentic, does not mean connected chain of narration. What is attributed, that's broader than all of those. Attributed, ma udlifa. And that's true. That broadness that I am telling you is true about marfu' hadith, attributed to the Prophet, connected chain or not, authentic or not. وَمَا أُضِيفَ لِلنَّبِيِّ الْمَرْفُوعُ, whatever is attributed to the Prophet is raised. وَمَا لِتَابِعٍ هُوَ الْمَقْطُوعُ, and what is attributed to a tabi'i is severed. And you know this means attributed to a tabi'i or anyone after him. Anyone after him. والمسند المتصل الإسناد من راويه حتى المصطفى ولم يبن. And the musnad is the one with the connected chain back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, back to Al-Mustafa, without severance. So it means a musnad hadith is a prophetic hadith with an authentic, with a connected chain. A prophetic hadith with a connected chain. Al-Marfu' al-Muttasil. Al-Musnad is Al-Marfu' al-Muttasil. Marfu' attributed to the Prophet, Muttasil with connected chain. Those two qualities merged together form the Musnad. وما بسمع كل راو يتصل إسناده للمصطفى فالمتصل. And anything that every narrator narrated it by hearing back to the Prophet is called muttasil. Or back to a companion. Then it's called muttasil. Now, had the author mentioned the muttasil before the musnad, then that would be a more coherent flow. Because he mentioned here, let me erase some of the scribbling here. He mentioned here in line number 7, marfu'. So that means attributed to the Prophet, connected chain or not. And then he mentioned in line number 9, what has continuous chain. So that's called muttasil. When you combine marfu' and muttasil, then the result is musnad. Musnad is marfu' and muttasil, two of them combined. So had he mentioned what's in line number 9 before he mentioned what's in line number 8, then that would make it easy for a person to comprehend what number 9 is. Easier. Yani, in order to explain number 8, you need to explain number 9 before you get there. Because number 8 is a combination of, line number 8. Line number 8 contains the type of hadith, which is a combination of what's in line number 7 and line number 9. I think it's clear for you what I'm saying. Then he says in line number 10, مسلسل كل ما على وصف أتى مثل أما والله أمداني الفتى كذاك قد حدثنيه قائما أو بعد أن حدثني تبسما. Maybe you're saying these lines along with me because you've been practicing. Musalsal is a type of hadith. Say about it that it is that which came with a particular description, a description in its chain. Musalsal is an attribute that the tasalsul or the silsila is an attribute of the chain, not the text. Like for every narrator to say, by God, the young man told me, or like for him to say, for every narrator to say, he told me standing, or for every narrator to say, after he told me, he smiled. عزيز مروي اثنين أو ثلاثة. And this silsila, this chain, this series in the chain, it could go for part of the chain. Doesn't have to be the entire chain. Could be that only a segment of it or a portion of it has a silsila in it. عزيز مروي اثنين أو ثلاثة. The Aziz narration, that means rare or it means supported, is the narration of two at every level. And that's true. That's accurate. Oh, thalatha, or three. But this mentioning of three here is disputable. Because what did he mean? Did he mean by three not less than two? It's possible that he means by thalatha, or three, two or three. It's possible that he means not less than two, never less than two. If so, then that is accurate definition of Aziz Hadith. Aziz Hadith is a hadith that is narrated by at least two at every level, never less than two. But when he said, thalatha, if he means that a narration of at least three is also Aziz, then this is not the standard definition of Aziz Hadith. And then he said, مشهور مروي فوق ما ثلاثة. And the mashhur, the famous or popular hadith, is the narration of above three. فوق ما ثلاثة. And ma is extra. Ma is extra, so as if it's not there. فوق ثلاثة. فوق ma, he added ma to keep the beat. مشهور مروي فوق ما ثلاثة. It means فوق ثلاثة. It means the mashhur is the narration of more than three. And this is also disputable because more than three starts at four. And mashhur is not the narration of at least four. It is the narration of at least three, not above three. معنعن كعن سعيد عن كرم. The mu'an'an hadith is the one that has a chain in it that says something like an Sa'id, an Karam, from Sa'id, from Karan, from Karam, an Fulan, an Fulan, an Fulan, from so-and-so, from so-and-so, from so-and-so. This is acceptable not from a trickster. This is acceptable not from someone known to be a trickster. Is the trickster, here's a question for you before we stop, who can give me correct answer without guessing. Is the trickster in narration a rejected narrator? Is the trickster in narration a rejected narrator to the hadith scholars? 5.
Not necessarily.
Correct, not necessarily. Yeah, heck of it. He will be acceptable if he's actually accurate and he explicitly says that he heard the hadith from the one before him because he's not a liar. So when the scholars basically catch someone being a trickster, then after that they will not trust him to narrate without explicitly saying that he heard from the one before him. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. We'll stop there. Any question?
Shaykhi, subhanallah, I missed the whole lesson.
MashaAllah.
Most of the lesson to be precise. شيخي شرحت شيئا زائدا عن المرة الماضية؟
Yeah, we explained الشاذ and
والمقلوب.
We didn't explain al-maqlub. I stopped there. So really it was all reviewed. Actually. Okay. Most of it we repeated from line 17 until we got to line 21, and we didn't explain مقلوب.
إن شاء الله. طيب المرة القادمة لعلك.
Yes, inshallah.
جزاك الله عني خيرا سيدي،
جزاك
نسيته.
الله فيك. سبحان الله. Yes, inshallah. بإذن الله. طيب بارك الله فيك.